Welcome to the live stream, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host today, Bumpy McSquigums. I'm joined by Cupogoodness, a tiny disaster. We are the Indie Brothers, and we've got something special today. A trailer mini reviews is what we're going to be doing. How's everybody doing today?
Good. Happy December to both of you.
Right. Ugh. Haven't quite wrapped my head around that one, but otherwise good.
You're like, it's December? When did this happen?
It is true that October was fast and November was faster somehow. I don't know how,
Hello,
but it
Missy.
was. Hey, Missy, what's going on?
Welcome to the stream. So, one sec. I need to bring up... I have way too many windows open. My head's going to explode.
This is a fun one today, though. I'm excited about this one. Very similar to the Steam page reviews, but a little more focused. I don't know how to describe it. It's Steam page reviews. You're looking at a myriad of different.
Yeah, I see it as, I guess in a way, I think it's a little more chaotic. Of like you don't really know what you're going to get into with the trailer, whereas
Sure.
Steam pages, there's some idea of what you're going to.
Right,
be
and
up
even if we subjectively have feelings about certain store page elements, there are best practices that most people are sticking to. With trailers, it's a little different. We might see something that I am quite prepared to disagree with one or both of you on things about certain aspects of these trailers, because that's very subjective if it's something that's hitting with us or not personally, or if it's working. Yes, there are still best practices to discuss. Yes, there are still, like, I think majority rules on certain things. It's like, yeah, maybe you like that, but I think most people would prefer this. I mean, if you could feel that out as a objective thing. But there's going to be some subjective reactions as well, so it's going to be interesting today.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to get into discussions of like whether or not we're the target audience for that game or not, like individually. So
that's right. Is it for us?
You might not be the kind of person, yeah, exactly, that they're looking to get the attention of.
Then it's on us, of course, if it's not for us, to then make the adjustment to see, through the eyes of someone that it would be for. That's definitely something that we need to think about.
And I think we were doing that a bit on the Steam page reviews of like looking at it with your marketing business brain versus your player brain of sometimes they're giving you different information.
Yeah, Missy, consider this the warm up the pre-show talk as we get ready to go here. Bumpy's gonna. Yep, there we go. So he was just getting us nice and ready.
Yeah, I'm just double checking. I was noticing that the YouTube links they don't have the name of the game. I was just wondering the easiest way to announce them. I'll be ahead. It looks like you did alternating every other one, so I'll have time. It's fine. All right.
Okay.
Problems solved. Not that there was any problems.
Shout out to Tiny Disaster for the festive sweater. We are ready to go.
I have the heat on.
December 1st, hit the ground running.
Our tree's up against my will, but that all happened on Thanksgiving. All the Christmas stuff. We celebrate Christmas personally over at this household, so we all did all that stuff last weekend. And yeah, it's a mess.
All right.
Like we almost had an area cleaned up in our house, and now it's just like there's like ornaments on the ground because it's like half decorated, all that stuff.
And then disaster struck again.
Not tiny.
A larger
medium disaster. Yeah,
exactly. A larger disaster. All right. So, what was the process, if you don't mind, real quick, Tiny Disaster, by which these were submitted, and in the future, how would they go about getting those submitted in when we do another thing like this?
How we've done in the past so far is just posting social media a week or two ahead of that particular stream, and then just letting you know what it is we're doing. So last time it was Steam pages, this time it was trailer reviews, and having kind of going through and picking from those that are submitted and getting a mix if we can. These ones none of us have looked at ahead of time, so you'll very much be getting our first impressions and then delving in a little deeper from there. So it's all pretty straightforward, I think.
Sounds like a plan. So it looks like first up on our to check out list is now you guys are gonna probably have to go through it with me because again constant changes.
Do we watch it on the stream or do we watch it on Discord?
You can't really watch it on Discord with me, so you guys might have to pull it up, and then when I go, you're gonna have to go too. So we're kind of in sync. That makes sense.
Gotcha.
Okay.
All right, so you guys all ready?
All right, so we're Creep Wars.
Yep.
Give me 1 second here.
Wars TD.
TD trailer.
I believe all
I can
the
drop links in the.
all the links
I'm
are
not into.
in.
Oh yeah, if you guys could
Slack.
drop a link, that would be great.
Well, they're all in Slack.
Oh yeah. Oh, go grab that.
Yep. Sorry, folks.
Let me pull up
I was
Twitch as
all
well.
excited. I was like, no notes today. I'm just gonna close Slack, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. The links.
Hey,
Sorry.
hey there, Tigers fan.
Okay, is it going to let me put links in both? I don't know if it'll let me link there. Yep,
All
so
right.
I put links in both YouTube and Twitch if anyone wants to follow along on their own, but we're also going to play it here.
Is it a 3, 2, 1, go, or is it on one we're gonna press play?
Yeah, it could be 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay.
Sorry,
Who does it?
Important
I'm ready.
messages. Looks like everything is good. By the way, Cup. So.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's really good then.
Okay. All right. Ready, guys? 3.
Yep.
2.
So ready.
1.
All right.
Okay. Well, there we go. That was our very first one. So, Creep Wars TD. So, anybody have any initial thoughts they want to throw out there?
I'm trying to find my tab with Misty's comment. Missy had said even before we started, I like the screen from the trailer already without seeing much yet. Just the art style looks great, and I very much agree. I'm a big tower defense fan. I don't play them as often as I'd like, but I really love the genre, and right away I do think this looks really clean. I like the kind of cartoony but fun.
So I'll just say that it's a difficult type of game to really showcase in a trailer because, it's units usually walking in a line and getting auto attacked by things you put down. So it's a tough one to really kind of criticize or critique in any way because again it's like how do you show that off in a bunch of different ways. One of the things that we do with screenshots and things of that nature when we're looking at the Steam store page optimization is we look to try to get as many different maybe biomes or different backgrounds, like maybe in a cave, at a castle, in a forest, volcanic, something like that. So if there are other areas and it's not just the same area, that might be something that would help make the trailer pop a little bit more. And one other thing that I'll point out, and then you guys can have at it, is the before the end, that scroll was terrifying and way too fast. It was like, oh God, what's happening?
Yeah, that was information overload at that point, and that's one of the I think Derek Liu, this guy that I follow on Twitter named Derek Liu. He's a video game trailer editor, very very accomplished editor. His website, I'm going to actually drop a link in that I'm looking at right now into. If I put it in Restream, is that best, or do I need to put it in
It'll put
each
it into
individually?
Both.
Okay,
that'll
great.
do both if you put it there. Missy, as someone who does speak English as the primary, that was still way too fast. I don't know if I read all of it. I got like 90% of it.
Yeah, so Derek Lou.com is his website. Derek Lou is his Twitter account. Follow him if you would like to learn more about how to go about, trailer creation, editing, etc. He's a font of knowledge in terms of sharing, letting people know, letting people know kind of what to do, what not to do. And in this link I just shared, information overload is one of the top 10 common indie game trailer mistakes. It seems like that was one of those points where it was just information overload. Right below that one on the 10 mistakes is generic title cards. And that was a big one for me, is that the title cards were too generic. And I don't mean in terms of their look, although the look was extremely basic. And it might be worth looking into jazzing them up to some degree if that's not a hard ask, because they were extremely, felt almost placeholder and not like they were actually like, Kelly, you're muted, or Tiny, you're muted. What are you saying?
Typing up tweets. The text overlays was the first thing that actually took me out of it, of like, oh, this looks not quite there.
Very placeholder. And then the thing that Derek talks about with generic title cards is things like 50 amazing levels, roguelike adventure, procedurally generated levels, run, jump, climb, 10 game modes, things like that. Those were the words that I were, effectively that we were reading. Not the exact words, of course.
Build tower,
but
upgrade,
very much in the spirit, right, of that. His examples of changing it up is like
you absolutely can. Tigers fan, of course.
It says making title cards which communicate ideas about your game, and only your game is difficult because it's the result of well-written messaging, but it makes the trailer so much stronger and unique. For example, now you're thinking with portals, talk your way out of hell. Time moves when you move, a godlike roguelike. Things like that. Things that make your game, personalize that text a little bit more to your game is going to make a big difference, because we've all read the generic stuff a trillion times, and so it just sort of blands things a little bit on my end, and as Tiny Disaster mentioned, it not just the look of it, but just the sort of genericness of the words themselves. It kind of takes you out of it a little bit. I actually didn't know when the first one came in if that was actually in game or not.
Yeah.
I was like, is that part of the game? And then the second one came up and I said, no, that can't be. That these are title cards. So those are a little basic, and definitely could, if you just look around on some potential sites that offer those kind of assets, and or someone that you could hire for the right cost that would match your budget, you could get something at least a lot better than what you have now, for sure, on that front.
Still looking at the game itself, I'm rewatching the trailer, just muted right now. I like the look. I think a Tiny Disaster said, sorry, the scroll hit me. Tiny Disaster said the look looks great, but with the generic one, even just trying to quickly reword it, and one of the things, we'll read what Tigers fan said here. I know it's difficult to show in a trailer sometimes, but based on this trailer, he has no idea what's unique about this game, and that's just it. One of the unique things, and it's been done before, but it's not been done super often, is as opposed to a tower defense, which it is, it's a tower defense where you have units as opposed to actual towers. So maybe word your, build tower as some units to fight the battle or something. I mean, it's still pretty generic and basic, but
and
it's
some of it, like needing to understand more about the game, because like some of the units seem to act as towers, like they weren't really.
I think they are the
uniting.
towers. Yeah,
I know, but like they weren't interacting. They were just kind of standing like towers, but are people.
Yeah.
So we heard.
There's that. I'm sorry. Then there's the summoning units. That looked really cool. I thought that was pretty good. I just, like I said, it's a tower defense game, but it's different a little bit,
There was some individually good storytelling in there, like them setting up and then the orcs coming through. I believe it was through the gauntlet point. I'm talking about that little gauntlet point where they're all set up, and then all of a sudden they pile through and there's fighting it. A little bit amateurish on that switch to slow-mo, and then there was a kind of like a music clip as well. Like there was a clipping at one point with the music that seemed to not be smooth. Looking to try to smooth those moments over would be, I think, help and improve things. I don't think we heard game audio, did we? Or did I miss that? Or were we not hearing game audio?
I don't think so. I think it was music. It was just music.
The music was fine. I didn't really have any qualms with the music, so to speak. I think it fit the it wasn't like the oh my gosh, the soundtrack, oh I can't believe it, but it fit well for what
I'm not
it
sure
was.
it added anything, but it didn't take anything away.
No, it wasn't like odd or off or anything like that.
I think you're right though. They
I would,
could mute in-game music and just have the sound effects going if that's a thing they can do. That way it doesn't overclash. But if they can't mute the in-game music because it's tied to one volume, that might be why. But yeah, it'd be nice to hear the units like swinging and hitting and grunting and all that.
Right. It's like me as a consumer is not going to accept that as an excuse. You need to come up with, you got to find a way to make sure that you have that game audio in there, because that's going to connect me more to the game if you allow me to kind of hear those sounds that you put in the game in addition to the trailer. I just think it's a little floaty when you don't have those sounds, and it's harder to connect to it as an individual when you watch that, to me. And then, so the music was good. There's the idea of when you take each piece of your trailer and break it down and look at it individually, are you telling a story within that trailer itself? You're not trying to get across your whole narrative design or story from your total game into your trailer. That's not possible, and you shouldn't try to do that. But it doesn't mean you should avoid it altogether. You just kind of have to know what you're doing there. And I think the simplest terms I've heard is just break it down into each section of your trailer is a portion of a larger, kind of storytelling piece that you're doing with a trailer, and make sure that feels correct. That feels right, like you're going chronologically through something and you're not hopping all over the place, and the narrative seems kind of in place. And it sounds kind of nebulous because I think it's going to be different for each game and each trailer that is attempted for said different games and such. But I think that's a good way to wrap your head around the idea of how do I have a nice tight trailer that shows off you're going to have a checklist. Most devs were going to have a checklist of, I want these things to be featured or included or somehow worked into this trailer. And then the editor has to think, okay, how do I do that, but also make it, cohesive from start to finish, and make the people watching it feel like they have invested their time. Another thing that I always like to think about, which we didn't have a talk.
There does seem to be game sounds in the background. Sorry.
Okay, cool. I missed those before. Maybe they could be brought up a little bit.
Yeah, more noticeable at the beginning, but then it started to fade out or get covered by the music. Sorry.
Yeah, if we're questioning it, then it's probably an issue, like a slight issue that needs to be addressed. Because I just couldn't remember, and I feel like if I really heard them, I wouldn't question it. So the other thing is the first 5 seconds. The first 5 seconds weren't bad. So the first 5 seconds is very important, I feel like, because I think we've talked about this in the past. People usually bounce off of things 9 times out of 10 in the first 5 seconds. So if what we didn't have is the cardinal sin here of you the trailer putting up random logos for a company that I don't know about or whatever, and taking 5 or 10 seconds to do that. That is like a super cardinal sin that you should try to avoid. We will see if anybody else commits this sin today. But so far we're 1 for 1 on not, because they go right into gameplay right away, which is a good start, which is like the foundational place where you should start on this if you don't have like something extra to go with it. Sorry. Go ahead,
the only caveat I have with that is you don't need to put your developer logo up. But I don't mind necessarily, like maybe for even a half a second, maybe even a full second. But like the name of the game splashed on at the start, I don't mind that, because it's like, all right, I hit the button, it's starting, and boom, you're right into it. That's fine. Yep. But yeah, I agree. Like and we've talked about this many times, but oh, from this company and you're like, but nobody knows you yet,
And the reason why it's okay to do the game name is because it's already in the title of the trailer you're watching, so you're already connected to that. And if you really don't if you're skittish about doing that with all black or whatever, then just use it as an overlay when you start with your gameplay, and make sure that the title is very clearly in like a corner, like a big corner bumpy. You know what I mean? Like
there's ways to play with, like doing 5 seconds, go to title, continue. So kind of hooking the two together.
Sort of a teaser at the start of the gameplay. Then sort of like you could do like, if in my mind as like a film guy from years past, I would think show off some of your best gameplay right away, maybe even dramatic or inspiring or that kind of thing, and then have that smoothly transition into dev name, title name and then let's hit a game name and then let's hit it. Like let's hit it to the trailer like full bore from there. That could be really cool because you'll have you've used the first 5 seconds to invite people in with the gameplay, so that the next 5 you can make that introduction of yourself without potentially losing them because you've already earned their trust with the first 5 seconds.
Yeah, like maybe show something a little bit deeper into the game. Like, they showed the summon units. Maybe show a bit of those attacking with like some of the catapults on the outside attacking a big wave, and then
Right.
Splash up or like fade in or zoom or whatever it is you want to do. Into Creep Wars TD and then continue. So yeah, I agree with that. That's a good call.
You don't want to show level 1 as the first thing you show. The first thing you want to show is something a little bit more like wow, chaotic. Like full, and chaotic, but also that the player can still parse what's going on to some degree.
This looks intense,
you like if you think about AI War 1 or 2 chaotic, that might be too chaotic to start off with the first introduction to like someone and stuff. They'd be like, I don't even understand. There's so many units on screen, that's too much. So there is definitely a balance to it, but you want it to be like awe-inspiring. Like, holy crap, that you can get it to this level, or look at that cool move that you can do, or something that you just know is one of the hooks of the we always talk about hooks, right? Something that really you think people would be drawn to right away. That honestly makes a lot of sense to within that first 5 seconds of your trailer.
And
for this one specifically, because I'm sure we're going to get into like all of those, like in general here you can do, but
right.
Without changing it too much and talking about the first 5 seconds, I found the first 2 shots really interesting. Not really interesting, but like it hooked me enough of like the one unit walking and then bigger on a different part of a different map. But then the at 5 seconds or just around there, that's where I would have gone with something more dramatic. Instead, it was the same shot as the first.
Yeah,
but again, just with more units. So that's where I started to get like a little, okay, let's see something new.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be loud right away. It can build to a crescendo if it's clearly going somewhere. If you see at the start, they're like, okay, it's a little bit quieter, or it's a little bit like more subdued, but it's building towards something. Then that can be something that hooks people in as well because they're like, oh, there's something that I can feel coming up. Horror trailers do this. Good horror games do this really well with their trailers. Is that they don't just and in their games too. They're not just going to they're not trying to scare you right away. They're trying to let you scare yourself a little bit for a while, and then they can get you later down the line and stuff. So let them.
And I do think that's what they were trying to do with this, of like showing progressively more units and it getting more difficult. Mm-hmm. It's just, and part of it might be it's an early access trailer, I think.
Yeah, but there's a pace to that and a speed to it, and you certainly don't want you don't want to backload all your best stuff. Like you don't want to backload all that good. Here's the game at full tilt.
So one final thing I think that I wanted to mention is, and this is just a general rule, it doesn't work for everything, but oftentimes it's not a bad idea to go and think about maybe doing a voiceover for the trailer as well. I think that could add to it, as opposed to, I mean, sometimes it might take away, but in general, I think that's almost always a good call, is to have someone voice over, like, you can build towers, or your units are towers. They will defend, whatever, come up with a script and just have someone read through it.
Yeah, there's two ways that you can do that. You either go with some voiceover to fill that in a little bit, because I'm watching this early part of the trailer. It's like, there's nothing here. Like, there's could be something extra here, like a voiceover, or your title cards have to be a little bit more synced up with your trailer as a whole from beginning to end. Like, someone has to be a narrator. It's either the narrator itself or the title cards. Like, has to be like the leader of the trailer, like the narrator of the trailer, and it can be both. And of course, like, you're giving more accessibility if you do have a narrator and closed captioning and all this stuff, so that if folks can't see, can't hear, etc., like, that's going to help out them get the trailer kind of translated to them as well. So it's good to have both options. Luckily, I think YouTube does have options for closed caption speech and stuff, so those are there. But getting professional voiceover is always not always, but usually going to up your production value of your trailer.
That sounds already so good. I never thought of coming to the voiceover artist one day. It is on my bucket list. Maybe we'll share the trailer that I did. At the
I was going to say, Bumpy is not a novice voice actor. He's already done professional projects in the past, including one for Universe.
Done one thing.
You also were a radio show host.
Yeah,
so
I did do that.
What's
That's
up?
true. Okay, we got anything else we want to say on this? Because I think again a lot of this stuff is we're gonna probably go back to some of the things that we've said in general about this.
One final nitpicky about this one note about menus that popped up for half a second.
Yeah.
Of either be using different clips or my eye was drawn to, I think it was even a sub menu that popped up with I have no idea what was in there because it was so fast. But just unit information or something, and then they switched screens or they scrolled off it because they didn't need to read it. But if it's on the screen, it should be there for a reason. It's not just a...
Yep. That's called bad eye trace. So if your eyes are getting pulled to areas that they're not supposed to be getting pulled to while you're trying to show off something different in the trailer, that's what's happening there. And that's definitely one of the top 10 common mistakes that Derek Liu mentions. And then also unfocused game capture. Although I don't see too much of that here. I didn't see too much
unfocused game capture. Speed up and slow down that you mentioned. That didn't seem to fit right.
Yeah, you have to make sure that feels professional, and you should get critiqued by even, mutuals, friends that will give you good feedback and not just be like, yeah, it's great. I'm not going to actually watch it and give you any constructive criticism, because you'll get that kind of feedback. It's this felt a little janky. This didn't feel quite right. So, decide if, and that will help you decide whether you want to fix it or you want to pull it, that kind of thing. The thing that I noticed is that they mentioned that there was slow motion. You can slow down gameplay, but that was after they did the slow motion effect. And so that to me was an issue because I was like, wait, was the thing I watched? I then started questioning and forgetting what I was watching because I was thinking, did I watch them slow it down in game? Or did they do that as an after effect, as part of the trailer itself?
I believe they were trying to draw attention to the half a second that their unit got popped in that was upgraded, which I thought looked awesome, by the way. I was very sad that it was so brief. They upgraded one of the peasants with a sword, and he became a footman in armor. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Oh, it's gone. What happened? And then right after that, they went into the slowdown, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I feel like that could get cleaned up, in a lot of different minor ways. It's not a major issue, but it is this kind of part of the trailer that can be improved to kind of give that overall professional feel a little, just up the level a little bit of that. My final thought on it was that the gameplay does look good as you both mentioned in the early going, and don't let your sort of basic graphics and generic title cards, they're kind of getting in the way right now, of enjoying that really good gameplay. And I think that they can the next trailer, or when you get to 1.0, or when you're getting ready for the launch trailer, invest a little bit more, maybe time or money into those areas, and they should pay off to show off your gameplay that this group agrees it looks pretty good, looks pretty solid.
Yep, that works for me. You guys ready for? I totally forgot what this is called.
Trailer 2.
Moolander, I think it was.
Moolander.
Okay. I was seeing this in other places. I don't know where else I've seen it, but Okay, so we're going with the first trailer, is that correct?
I believe so, unless they specifically asked for a different one.
There's 3 trailers in the Steam, but I imagine the first one is what they want us to watch, so.
Okay. So, are you guys ready?
To be fair, they did post a trailer, let me see, to the tweet that they shared was a specific trailer. It's just I couldn't share that with you guys, so it doesn't actually look like it's the same one. Oh no, it's the same one as the first one. We're good.
Okay. It's the first one? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right then.
All right.
3, 2, 1. Go.
That was tough. Hamilton, some beast is looking at us. Whoa, would you look at that? Mars is one heck of a planet. So green and beautiful.
Let's just be careful, sir.
That was incredible. That looked amazing.
That was excellent.
That was
Really
really
well
good.
done trailer. There were times where I was like, "What is it? What even is this game?" I guess is like one potential like. There was times where I was pulling.
I still can't
Once we get to
figure
the
out, are you the cow or the ship, or at
right,
times both?
because it started with the man,
Yeah.
and I thought that was the protagonist, and he was kind of stupid, so I immediately related to him, and it was just like I was like, this is got my kind of character because he was like, what was he say right away? He was like, this kind of cow thing. And he's like,
He's
Mars
some
is
kind
so
of beast.
Mars is so lush with green, and you're like, yeah, just be. The computer was like, hey, yeah, just be careful, you dummy. It's just you can tell. And the computer was like, all right. So I like that start, but then yeah, it was a little confusing on if you are. It does seem like you are the cow, but then why start with?
Well, I don't know though, because like you clearly a lot of it you were the ship and you were smacking stuff with like you had like a sword weapon and you were dodging things.
Maybe maybe you're not the cow.
I don't know.
Well, just reading from the page, and again, like we have to focus on the trailer here, but like
the multiplayer part, I think that's where I started to question it because I thought you were the ship the whole time,
woo!
and then multiplayer
So,
they
yeah.
set up to 4, and then I was like, well, there's 2 cows and 2 ships. Are they competing against each other? So I don't know. So what's up?
So in multiplayer it says be the cow. So that it does seem like multiplayer mode is like completely different than the story mode we were watching.
Yeah, maybe throw that in there to in multiplayer, you can play as the cow or something because that's
was like,
literally where I got distracted and confused.
I was like, beautiful looking, silly Metroidvania at first, and then all of a sudden multiplayer with cows, and I was like, I thought I knew what this game was about, and I kind of don't, but I think
I'm not interested, but I am confused.
And I think that's one of the if you want to
good.
like, again, this is a really good trailer, so we need to take issue with what we can. And one of the issues that I think that we can take here is that it's not quite clear what is single player versus multiplayer, what is like what the modes, the differences in the modes. Like I would use more title cards or the narration was great. I thought the narration, it really felt really natural. Like again, we had talked. I had just talked about last trailer. Like we were going through its own story of the trailer itself had its own thing going because of the way it wasn't even like a narrator necessarily. It was just them talking and such. It was really well done, really clever.
I mean, because of the voiceover and like the boss battle and stuff, and you don't need to do everything in one trailer. Depending on how weighted your gameplay is in either direction, I would maybe just cut the stuff where you're the cow if that's just multiplayer. Have the note about multiplayer like you did, but stick to the story and the narrative, and like that hooked me on its own. And then if I read more or watch another trailer and there's multiplayer, that's a bonus. It depends on like if multiplayer is half of your gameplay, half of your selling features, that's what you want people to do. Different story, but
yeah. Or for me, I would need an entire tonal shift between in the same trailer. I need an entire tonal shift between the single player campaign and then let's play as cows in like a Smash Brothers type situation, like what I saw there. So it's a little vague in terms of that, and that's really my only complaint. It's a really beautifully done trailer, and it's just missing some of the technical, maybe fundamentals that you'd like to see to fully translate what's going on. But sometimes that's okay. Sometimes that brings about a little more sense of I don't know what this game's about at all, and I'm more interested because of that. I'm going to go wish list because of that kind of thing. So it's subjective if you need to. I wouldn't of course, go overboard with the title cards or anything like that, or any additional information. But I would find a way to maybe bracket the single player and the multiplayer off a little bit differently than they have so far.
I say they did an okay job with it because again, it kind of confused me at the end, but they brought it all the way to the point, and then in the background it says you play up to 4-player multiplayer, and then that whole section was that, and then the way they ended it was the guy was on the ship spinning around, getting ready to hanging on, and then gets flung off, and then they show like the devil cow, and then that's the end. So they did kind of cap it, but like I said, it got to the point where I'm like, oh. Was I supposed to be focusing on the cows? I was focusing on the ship as the main character. So
we definitely did single player, multiplayer,
something more that explains that the cows are used. But
really I don't know if I like the single player, multiplayer back to single player transitions as much. I don't know if that worked. But I mean, okay, first of all, it's got a great title name because it's not a trademark name, but it is related to a trademark name that everybody knows. And you know, if you're of even a probably you Tiny Disaster, but because of Zoolander 2, but like Zoolander 1 was like our generation, Bumpy, my generational, like kind of in our late teens.
Pretty sure I'm 3 years younger than you.
Keep gonna do this. I'm like, you're
kid.
like 19, right, TD? You know, all the time. You're like, what?
She's like 12. It's fine.
No, I mean, I just think that's you start there. You're starting from a pretty good place already, because you have very much like the Thomas the Train Nightmare game we talked about, right? Like there's something that's tangible, that's relatable, that you know has already hit, you know, internet culture, meme culture, whatever. Zoolander certainly hit internet culture, in a big way and such. So Moolander is going to get you more eyeballs, I think, than you normally would with any other just sort of name that you wouldn't necessarily relate to anything, if that makes sense. So what does it mean by itself? Nothing. But if you actually have like a good game behind that is related to cows, and it kind of goes from there, it feels right. I think that's a huge asset for them at this point too, is that title is going to have people going through Game Pass, have people going to the PlayStation Store, have people going through Steam, and it's going to slow them down. They're going to take a second longer to look at that more often than not, because of the title. And I guess like, you know, that's like you can't do Untitled Cow Space Game because it's already been Untitled Goose Game and that's already been kind of done and stuff. But that kind of stuff, and you find the new way to do that. The first game or two that does that really benefits highly from it. So this is kind of like a good idea on the title, just mentioning that because it kind of pulls you in. If you're any kind of fan of Zoolander or anything like that, you're like, or you know about it, you're like, I get that reference, and just kind of go from there.
All right, so Missy made a good point, and I also am very confused by this. So she just checked the Steam store page, and it says 2D platformer, even in the little blurb right under the capsule. You're flying in a ship. I don't really see the 2D platformer aspect of it, which is strange.
I don't know.
It's
That's
like,
how my brain read it. Of like, maybe there's
What's-
other subgenres that or genres that also fits, but to me it was a platformer.
It's like Metroidvania is what I thought when I saw the art and how you're moving through what looks like cavernous areas a lot of times. But
you're flying. You're not really platforming. I guess
it did seem like
my
they
problem.
were they bouncing around? I would have to go back and look at the trailer. I thought that they were bouncing around a little bit more than they were just like in the air.
Well, I feel like they can
but
like they're floating, then they can do like quick dodges. You know. That's what it seemed like to me.
at the start, they're just sort of showing off a lot of and he's in the air shooting.
Yeah,
It almost looks like you could describe it as a shoot 'em up, which you would never do in this day and age because shoot 'em ups are one of the least like, you know, lowest selling genres in the history of games, unfortunately. And not to say that shoot 'em ups are bad, rather they have a really hard time selling in the current era. And he's flying most of the time, and then the cow comes flipping in.
Yeah, I'm watching the third trailer, and he's just literally, it's just them flying.
Yeah,
to the
it's
right.
interesting. So it does a 2D adventure platformer, but it does. I think the platformer maybe comes from the cow element of actually, because that would be the only time where you're in control of that kind of situation. I am interested. Like, I'm like, is there some sort of single player? Is there some sort of mode in single player where you're switching between the ship and the cow? And if so, that needs to obviously be really emphasized a lot more because I don't understand that if that's the case.
And then Missy also says the recent event Galactic Moo Ball competition makes her even more confused. The trailer does look good. It might be confusing, but it sounds awesome. The Galactic Moo Ball competition. I like it.
Yeah, and I mean, they do have 3 trailers, to be fair, right? We just watched one of them, or 3 videos up there. We only watched one of them. That doesn't mean that we have to take in all 3, you know, or anything like that. No, certainly a consumer or a potential buyer doesn't have to do that. They do have a demo on their store page, so this one looks really good. If anyone's interested in that kind of genre, that kind of silliness, I definitely the Sixth Hammer has something that looks pretty good here.
Yeah. So again, overall, fantastic thing. Just a slight confusion at the end, and that it was really enjoyable. It made me smile, made me laugh throughout the thing. So I really don't know. I really like that. Any final thoughts of things to change or suggest or critique?
Nothing for me.
Yeah, I mean, other than maybe a little bit more informative, but be careful because you could ruin that if you go down
Yeah.
too far. So I
Yeah.
caution myself against myself.
The over saturation of information. Yeah. Too much
Right. We don't want to
information.
go. We don't want to go too much, but I do think some things could be cleaned up a little bit for the potential player who's eager to get into the game and understand what it's all about.
Get their cattle on. All right.
That's right.
Are we ready for the next one?
Yes.
It
Let me
is
move over.
Ignis Universia. I think that's what I have. That's what I have
Let
here.
me see here.
If it's not,
I
then
think
Tiny Disaster sent me the wrong trailer.
nope. Ignis Universia.
All right.
Okay, so
Let you guys.
I'm
get
ready
all
to start when you
synced
guys
up.
are ready.
Are you good? Tiny Disaster.
I am good. Well, I've got an ad, but I'll be good in 5
Okay.
seconds.
I'll wait. Yeah, I'll wait till the ad. Yeah, I had one too. Well,
Okay, I'm good.
That is good. All right, let's see what we got here. 3, 2, 1. Okay.
Okay.
I like that
Really
too.
cool. Love that bookend.
Yep.
And
And that's what I was talking about, the fade in, fade out situation for the title of the game itself. It's great.
Yeah, quick, and it was quick, and the music was building, and we were ready, and you knew what was coming next. It's not like they were holding you hostage there with that title screen or anything like that.
So clearly the game is self-aware, which is great.
Yeah, it was cute. It was cute.
really
I thought
enjoyed it. The most adorable Cerberus I've ever seen.
Yes.
I liked the kind of the fourth wall breaking. The first person being like, "I'm in the trailer." The second person being like Rogue doesn't like you, probably that kind of thing. It's just funny things going on. There was a typo when it said ripped off Doki Dori. It was ripped of Doki Dori, so just like a minor thing. But of course, you want to get your game text as
that's
professionally done as possible. It happens. Just got to make sure it's fixed up when you can. But I felt like it was the people who made the trailer. You could tell we're having a good time with it, and that always helps. I think. If you could
Literature Club, got it.
If you could feel that the person on the other end of the person making the trailer, editing it, etc. If you could feel that they're enjoying themselves, like that's a good thing. And I felt that in this trailer, if that makes sense.
I think it's like assuming that tone matches the game, and this one I very much think and hope it does.
Yeah.
But like that definitely played through, so you would hope that sets an expectation that's realistic for your players.
What did you whisper?
I'm totally gonna try to get this and cover it on the channel. Absolutely.
100%. Yeah, I mean, like. Now, well, okay. So when I saw the battle system, I thought when they were fighting the boss, I thought that maybe that was a little nitpick here would maybe be just speed that up a little bit. I don't want to like have people.
I was immediately looking at like what the heck is happening. I wanted all the information I can. I was looking all over the place at first when they were fighting the boss because I wanted to know like what information do we have. But it seems very I don't want to say plain. That's not the right word. Just there's not much going on. You just can tell like one character's basically dead and everybody else is full health and mana.
It did seem like it was there was some room puzzle stuff going on with the mage, and I imagine it's just I'm not describing it as simple, but it's like puzzles, combat, things that you probably have dealt with in the past. Nothing that like wildly new, but is it an enjoyable experience? I think is what we're looking for, and it does seem like the characters are interesting enough. Like if you're going to go through the paces of a lot of the class stereotypes like rogues and mages and things like that, I think that it was nice to put little twists on it like they did.
I agree. And now this is something for me specifically that a lot of people aren't gonna like. But if you look at all the characters are female, and that's great. But they're not like overly sexualized like in like 99% of games. They're not like, hey, let's look at the cleavage of all the warriors. Like they didn't do that, and I love that. It's I don't know. It's too much. There's just too much of that in almost every game. So for me personally, the characters drawn like normally proportioned people is great, and I love it.
Yeah, and it feels like the agency of like they're dressed how they would want to be dressed, right?
Yeah.
Like not just like how they were drawn.
Yeah, they're like,
Which is
oh,
good.
well, I have this totally working armor that makes no sense. What? They're just dressed in whatever clothing that kind of fits the class, I guess. It's just, I don't know. That's a small thing. That's a for Bumpy plus there. Like, so many games are just like, okay. Well,
This game definitely gives me like a Whitethorn feel for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a pretty well done trailer actually for what is involved, what I'm seeing of the gameplay. I don't think that they're like leaving anything out. I don't think that they're like holding anything back from me. I like that at the end where you see the tarot cards. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That adds like I keep thinking, oh, it's just this simple kind of game, and they show me little different looks that I like.
The only thing that I didn't see a lot of, and maybe it's because it's not supposed to be focused on quite as much, because it's you've seen that before in so many games, is you didn't see a lot of combat. The combat was usually like, here's like half of a move or one move being done, and you didn't really see anything else. I don't know if there's movement or animations or what's going on in it. Like you saw the squirrels attack, and then you saw something when you fought the boss.
Yeah, they certainly didn't overemphasize it, did they?
No.
Now, whether that's the right thing to do or not is based on how much of the gameplay actually is combat and not, I guess, is the way I think about it. Because you certainly don't want to overemphasize combat if it's only going to be about 25% of the gameplay. However, if it's a lot more than that, you might want to lean into that a little bit more and show off some of the systems there. As Bumpy points out, his interest would be to see more of the details in those elements that maybe we didn't get enough of.
Like there wasn't even a context menu pop up in the combat. Like they launched an attack and it said deal physical attack, but there was like no button presses. There was no other choices that I saw.
So maybe talking this out, we're getting to the point where we're finding out that this trailer might have a breadth over depth issue. So we're seeing the breadth of the game very well, but we're not necessarily seeing the depth of it as much that we could. Maybe through the combat itself is where you would start. Because again, if you have an RPG combat situation set up at all, there's going to be more depth than what we saw so far.
I do think it might be because it's less combat focused. Like it says it's a turn-based JRPG and visual novel.
Mm-hmm.
So it might lean more into that storytelling side. It's hard to say without knowing the game.
And I think I agree with that. And this is not a game that is necessarily meant for this person right here in the chair. So I do understand that as well. I'm not a visual novel fan, so to speak. I respect it and I like the genre a lot. I've seen it done I've seen some entries do amazing things, and I've worked with developers that have worked on it before, but it's not something that I personally have a taste for or spend a lot of time in. So it's certainly not like a genre that I see and go, oh, this is for me, and I have a lot of passion about it. So I try to look at it, from the objective kind of view. But you're probably right. It doesn't necessarily need to overemphasize the details, so to speak, if that's not really what they're trying to emphasize. So overall, just like the last trailer, I think it's really well put together. It knows what it is, and it does a good job of sort of representing itself as such. And it feels clean. It feels really clean, especially with that bookend of the title screen of the video game title.
Yeah, I like that. I
Um,
like it showed its comedic concepts, ideas all throughout. You know, not just like oh, here's a random one-liner. It was like it littered throughout the entire trailer. They kind of kept that going, and there was something else that I wanted to mention, but you were going to say something to Tiny Disaster?
I was going to read Missy's comment of so much agree with not overly sexualizing the women in the game. I can't. I've dug around on a bunch of like websites, social media. I can't really see anything about the development team, but I suspect there are women on this team. Was
sure.
kind of the impression I get.
For sure, yeah, I see similar. I mean, with the games that we worked with Whitethorn, there were women on the team for games like Starcrossed, which I think is has similar kind of character designs.
Yeah, even the rogue, you know, she's dressed more provocatively, but again, she's not like disproportionately, you know, alluring or whatever word.
And
that
it felt like
people
the
would think.
agency of the
It's
character
not.
itself. It was like this is how I want to dress, as opposed to again to like
Yeah.
this is just how it was drawn.
Yeah, so like I said, I appreciate that. Again, I know probably the vast majority of people playing certain games, probably not, but it's fine. And oh, I know what it was. Um, it's talking about visual novels. Like in and of themselves, I again, I'm not a massive fan, but to use that style as a storytelling device for a game that has other things going on for it, I actually don't mind it. So I'm totally, yeah, I'd be very curious to see how this goes because like Idea Factory, for instance, are folks that work with me a lot, and of course they do over sexualize everything. But regardless, their games are quite decent, and they do tend to go with the visual novel style of storytelling, and then you actually get to play the game and do the gameplay stuff, which is usually pretty good. So, yeah, like I said, I get it, and I totally understand why and how it's not for everyone. So.
Well, and I feel like when you have a visual novel, those cards of them talking and stuff, or those like those scenes of them talking, they do lend themselves very well to trailer use. So it is important to make sure that those are represented as well.
Tigers fan said that some of the text was a bit too quick.
Hmm.
I found that it was about where I would read it normally. So again, that means that it probably was maybe slightly too fast, especially for maybe Missy with English not being her primary language. It was a bit quick.
Yeah, there's no right answer, right? Everybody
Yeah.
reads it at different speeds, and like you pointed out, some of us are English speaking as our first language, and some are not. So it can make differences depending on your perspective. There, you don't want to go so slow that it's
Yeah, it's true. Like
dragging the trailer,
yeah.
but you obviously want to make sure that everybody it's as accessible as possible to as many people as possible, and not speeding through.
I didn't notice this before, but I think they had the pendulum of the clock. I'm assuming that's a clock swinging, or maybe it's a stopwatch or whatever it is, to do some of the transitions between the different things. I thought that was kind of a neat little thing.
Yeah,
Just caught it there.
there's a motif there. Thematically, they're bringing something back again and again for you to kind of like latch onto. Potentially that they whether or not it is a hook or they're using it as such to try to draw you in and
Maybe
say
medallion.
this is our unique kind of different kind of thing. Sorry, I cut you off, Bumpy.
Oh no, I was just saying maybe a medallion. I'm trying to figure out exactly what it is because
It
it's
reminds me
definitely
very much of
swinging.
remember how Chrono Trigger starts with the pendulum swinging on the time on the grandfather clock start.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I was originally
that similar
thinking.
feeling for sure.
But now I'm thinking maybe it's a medallion, but who knows?
But
I think
the
it looks.
pendulum swinging thing, it's
Yeah.
iconic. The pendulum swinging
Yeah.
back and forth, whatever it is, whatever's hanging down that pendulum, where it's like medallion or like clock face or whatever. It's very interesting. Like that whole just watching that motion take place. It lends itself to thinking about time, if that makes sense. Because I think of the TikTok situation there. So not your TikTok Tiny Disaster, the other original with the C's in the case.
And
Not just the case.
Yes, I also really like the look of their like I guess what I would call their logo, right? The Ignis Universia.
Yeah.
And that whole thing, it jumps out at you. It's bright. It's good.
They didn't. They spent time on it. They leaned into it, and so they said, now that we've leaned into it, we're not going to just go hide it now. We're going to bring it to the forefront of our trailer as well. We're going to use it as an asset because we created it. We made it an asset instead of just having a rushed logo done or something that's not necessarily like top notch that we're really proud of. They were proud of it. You could tell, and they leaned into it.
Missy was saying about that they switch between Eliana. It's basically the different sizes of the dialogue kind of throws her off a little bit because she's like, all right, she read the small box where it was clearly in-game capture, and then it brings it to here's a character and it shows that, and then it's like, oh, I'm in the trailer, and it's a much larger one, and then when it goes to the next one, it's small again, and you're like, okay, I got to read the smaller thing.
Could be cleaned up a little
Yeah,
bit.
so that might be something that would be helpful.
Yeah, you have to decide sometimes what you're going to go with in terms of in-game versus, like in the post-production of your trailer.
Okay.
And sometimes you're thinking they'll work together and they don't. And if they don't, then you might have to pick one over the other.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Or
try
time it out.
to try to marry them so they're, the same as far as
Yep.
It's like, hey, there's bigger character and we could use a bigger font. Just maybe keep it the same size so people always go, oh, dialogue, I need to look down here.
Right.
So, I got you. But yeah, that's pretty good. Any final thoughts before we move on to the next one?
Nope, ready to go.
Ready to go.
Very impressed.
Yep, that's it's a pretty good double hit there. We had 2 in a row. What is this? I don't know what this game is.
And the first one wasn't bad at all. The first one wasn't bad at all. It just you could tell it was
a little bit more. It seemed like the game wasn't as done, right?
Right, and it did have the feel of like, and this isn't a bad thing or anything. It depends on how you're able to put it together. It did have the feel that it was done by the programmer of the game or the developer of the game, like the solo developer of the game. The first trailer had that feel. The second and third trailer, the third one might have been done by the development team. The second one, if it was, they had a really good video editor on their team, I feel, with Moulander.
All right, so are we ready for this one now? You guys got it all
ready for the 3, 2, 1. So I have it all full size. Can you go the game name again?
It's Crooks Like Us. Yeah, I know. I just forgot.
Crooks Like Us.
Look. I don't know why. My memory is apparently starting to go. So, all right. We're going to go with 3, 2, 1. My first impression is, did anybody else think that was just slightly blurry? It felt a little blurry to me.
Mine wasn't blurry, I don't think.
No.
I didn't feel like that.
It's just me. Okay.
So my thought right away is it's pretty well put together. I think that the music's a great example of you don't need to pay $1 trillion for good music. These people found, I don't know if this is royalty free or not, but it felt, and I don't mean this in a bad way. I don't mean to say, hey, royalty free music is cheaper or not as valuable or professionally done. But what I felt like this trailer did a really good job of is they found what would be simple and inexpensive, likely cost-wise in terms of music, that fits the trailer extremely well. It started out kind of
the trailer to the music they found. Like, oh, this would be perfect. I know exactly what to do, right?
Which is really intelligent, right? Like, I think a lot of movie trailers do that too. A lot of trailers in general are will get the soundtrack that they're working with and decide how they're going to clip things based on the soundtrack or the track or music they're using itself, because then you can have these like epic moments tied in because you're doing it through the music as opposed to just going, we'll figure it out and the music will be in the background, so to speak. So that's a good point. This right off the bat kind of caught my attention because I thought that the title cards did the right thing this time. Okay. The title cards were really specific to the game itself as opposed to
and the modes that are showing, right?
Right. They weren't saying generic things. They were saying things that were related, to the game itself, like spoil other crooks and things like spoil other. I don't remember what the exact wording was, but it was basically like you can mess with other players, but they said it in a way that was tied to the game itself with the crooks and such. I
Take down
liked
rival crooks. Yeah.
take down rival crooks. Again, it's not like that likely didn't take that much effort even, but by going that route instead of saying something kind of more standard or generic, that's just a great example. Maybe that was just like an easy one anyway, like a couldn't miss one. But there's other ones too. And like you said, once they got into the game modes, it kind of gave you even more excitement because you see the game at first and you go, "Oh, that looks fun." Probably for a little bit that's fun. And then as multiplayer games like this should, they go, "Well, wait, there's more. There's different ways you can play, and it's not just like the same mode over and over again." So that showed us some of the depth of the game, which I really liked a lot. I thought that it's a tough. I look at it from this is kind of just from my perspective as like the marketing perspective. It's a tough market to be in right now to have a game like this. Yeah. It doesn't look like it's an online multiplayer. It might be, but I think it does say online PvP and online co-op. So that's good. That gives it a much better chance.
I'm always surprised when games aren't in 2021, right? Like that should.
It's always a financial thing that separates it usually, so it's almost like a gatekeeping thing. But things like Parsec have really, and like the Steam Remote Play Now have really helped sort of break that gateway down a little bit. Like there's still obviously latency issues that can come across with certain games that don't come across in other games that Bumpy and I have even tested and seen that before. But it depends on what the multiplayer infrastructure looks like on the online side. This one doesn't look like it's too intense. You think of like Human Fall Flat as something that you're thinking, okay, that's maybe on the more doable side. But I know when like working with Obey, Bumpy, that we got an idea of how much it costs just to keep servers up.
Yeah.
And in a time where you're like, I don't even know if people are coming through the door. It's like, whew, that is such a cost sink if it doesn't work out. So it's the same reason why Cook Serve Delicious 3 doesn't have online multiplayer built in. We would be basically potentially doubling the cost of development.
But
which is
at this
like
point in time for a game like that, the remote play together is literally the same thing without you having to do anything.
So important.
No,
right?
yeah, moving out. I had like an overcooked crew for a lot of the pandemic, and we tried to move to moving out, which was Team 17 as well, but no online co-op, and we tried to. Oh, awful.
Yeah,
awful.
There are certain games that are really, really bad. Bumpy and I tested Cook Serve Delicious, and luckily that it did not feel bad. Even though there was a minor delay, it wasn't something that you go, well, that messes me up from being perfect, which is like the big issue, I think, in Cook Serve Delicious.
Except for the beer pour.
Beer pour, you gotta be you're a little finicky, right? Maybe let the guy who has the game at the home site take the beer pours. But yeah, other than that, it's not quite 100%, and it is a thing. It is come down to financials. If a game takes off based on its base, then it could always add it. But the problem is that a game can't often take off if it doesn't have that online multiplayer aspect right off the bat. So it's a catch-22 or whatever you want to call it. Like there's just not a good way to solve it quite yet. I bet you in 5-10 years it just becomes more and more accessible though, and it gets easier and easier for smaller developers with less budget to get that done, Bumpy, and to have that ubiquitous. If this game has multiplayer, it can be played virtually across countries and stuff between players as opposed to having to be in the same room.
So what this game does, which is probably most games won't get away with, I think this is like one of those exceptions to the rule. And it goes with their soundtrack, the whole design, everything about this. There's just so much happening. It's super busy. It's hard to keep track of everything going on. But I think it's kind of the strength of the trailer. Like that's kind of the whole point. It's supposed to be chaotic. You're supposed to be like, oh God, what's happening? Oh, that's fun. It's keeping you guessing. It's showing you a bunch of different things. It's going through these different areas. That was one of the things we mentioned in the first one. A bunch of different biomes, different things that just look vastly different from one another.
And
it's great.
I'll say it's clean for being cluttered. Because it's cluttered by definition because they're carrying a bunch of clutter. But it's not something where you're like, it's not visual clutter, so to speak. I can see what's going on and kind of confirm that. So there is a lot going on, but at the same time, they seem to present it to me in a way that is clean and clear, which I really enjoy.
It still looks blurry to me slightly. I don't know why.
Strange. And then, I mean, I've definitely, this is something that I think when I see it and think of what we do personally, Bumpy, on our Friday streams, I'm like, this could be something we would like to play together with the group. Like, could be awesome. Could
be mad at me for beating you again.
Well, you want to talk about it? Just keep it that's private.
You guys are always mad when I win. I can't help it. I'm sorry.
You tune in the streams on Friday to watch Bumpy win all the time. It's good stuff. But crooks like us actually
playing competitive games with me. They don't like me anymore.
We stopped playing competitively because you just kept beating our butts. But like crooks like us looks. I think the trailer knew itself again. Like the people who made the trailer kind of knew the game well enough that I felt like that was really related. In that creation of the trailer, like when you watch the music, when you watch the build up, and I think to me, all the title cards were, and all like the stuff that I had to take in, it wasn't too fast. It was like the right amount of speed. You do want this to have this kind of game. You want some pace to it with a trailer, right? You don't want it to be. You don't want people hanging on or like kind of going whatever kind of thing. So it was good. I thought it was a really good start. I'm going to check again just at the beginning how it started. I think it just jumped right in.
It started with a zoom in on the truck and then it came out in chaos.
So really clever use. Like, do you see how that's not how the gameplay works, the way they did that camera work, right? Like the camera, maybe it does, maybe it is. But it looked like to me like there was an after effect of let's do a zoom in on the van, pull back, and then zoom in on the vault. And that's really clever use of like just using a static, what would seem like a static full game screen, right? And then adding some, some real editor chops there, and upping the production value immediately using that technique.
Okay. Any final thoughts before we move on to Dash Hail?
Nope, I'm good to go.
No, but we have some good trailers today as well. I know so far.
Yep.
There's some games I want to play all of a sudden. So cool stuff.
Do we really even have anything negative to say about that? I don't think we did. We just really like that trailer. Okay, well there we go. And by negative I mean like, is there anything that we could say to maybe improve upon? And honestly, I think they nailed it. So there you go. Congratulations.
I mean, there's always ways you can improve things, so to speak. You could put more money into it to improve this kind of thing. But what we have here is a financially sound, good trailer. What I mean by financially sound is like this was something that was done on probably a budget, and it was done well.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like sometimes people think adding more money to the problem or to something is going to fix it or make it better. And sometimes it gets overbloated.
You can't just throw it, right? You have to understand what you're doing with that money and saying what are the increases in production values that are going to present. Like again, they could pay a musical artist to do maybe a more jazzed up rendition of the song that they used or something that would be fit the same thing spiritually. And maybe have like a little more memorable, maybe a little more Jonathan Gear from Cooks Are Delicious feel to it, as opposed to what it was. But is that necessary? No, it's not for that trailer. It really isn't.
And it might even change the whole tone of the trailer too.
And you might have a thing where everyone's like, "Hey, screw this game. Who's this Jonathan Gear guy? That music's awesome. I don't even care about Cooks Are Delicious games." And that happens all the time to us. So it's for better or worse. They're like, "I can't get off the title screen right now." I'm like Chef Squad. It's like, oh no. You guys got to play the game.
All right, are we all synced up and ready for Dash Hail?
Dash Hail, I'm ready.
All right, in 3, 2. Hello, Matt.
Good.
What a wild game.
I mean, so like right off the bat, I looked and I saw 1 minute 55 seconds, and I was like, this is way too long. I don't think this is going to be something that I'm going to want to stick with for 2 minutes, and that 2 minutes went really fast. I can say this as well. I don't mean this as an insult, but the video game is as good as the trailer, then you got a hit on your hands because the trailer's really good.
Yeah.
God, that was really, really smart, really intelligently done. It has that like that self-deprecating indie stuff that we saw earlier a little bit, which I really love. Self-awareness, like we've talked about. But every stock character part was so good. The way they dropped that in. Every stock villain.
Enemy ever, or villain.
That's so good. That was so good. And so, yeah, I like. It's not even a game that I necessarily think that I would like. I was like, I don't know if I like this game or if I play it or that kind of stuff. The trailer does a really good job, I think, of selling it and bringing me closer to potentially wanting to play it just based off of the creativity of the creator of the trailer and or the developer of the game, what they put into it. I am really blown away by the trailers we've seen today. I thought we were going to see a lot more amateur hour stuff, and we have not seen that for the most part today. It's been really, and I mean that in a way that you could tell. Again, this is a trailer like the last trailer. I feel like they worked with what they had. They didn't have some epic budget or huge thing to work, a huge amount of money to work with on a trailer. So they worked with what they had. The electric guitar stuff was, again, something that you could find on a stock music site or royalty-free situation. But it fit really, I mean, I wouldn't, perfect's kind of a weird word, but it fit really well with what was going on. Just like the last trailer. It did its job really, really well. And then you have this guy, right off the bat, they do some comedy stuff with him with the text. I thought the text was great the whole time. Not good, but great. The way they ran it out, the way they told the story. Again, we have what I feel like is a really nice beginning, middle, and end for a trailer, which is something that you should always strive for. Is that the full narration of the game? Probably not, but they wanted to but it was a summation at least of what was going on with like what you're going to be doing for the most part. The guns, the swords, and then the weird gun sword running, and it's goofy, it's funny, and if it's the kind of game you're looking for, you are going to appreciate the time and effort that's being put in to the trailer to try to convince you to buy it. So I do appreciate a lot what's going on there.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think I would even be interested in the game itself if the trailer wasn't as good as it is.
Like, that's what I mean. If the game is as good as the trailer, right? Like
game, it's not something that would just immediately appeal to me. I'd be
it's something that reminds me like that I would see in the Xbox indie games live section back in the day, where a lot of those things were not good, but some of them, despite look, were absolutely fantastic, very fun games, including the one I mentioned to you recently that they're going to re-release. The developers of Salt and Sanctuary are going to re-release, called I Made a Game with Zombies in It, which was an Xbox Live indie arcade, or not indie arcade, but just an Xbox Live indie game from like over 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago kind of thing. So it was basically a student project, or not even, I wouldn't say student, but just like, one of his first projects that he did. And it's not a looker by any imagination, but it's the actual enjoyment of the gameplay itself. So that's kind of what I see here, is that it's like, okay, this doesn't necessarily have the tremendous art assets or art value here, but what they're working with what they have, and they're trying to give you a good experience based on what the assets and the development that they're working with. So no clue about the game itself, but I'm a comedy guy. I like laughing, and they made me laugh multiple times in that trailer in a really good way.
Thoughts? A Tiny Disaster.
Overall, very much agreed. Very, very good. Like two little things where I do think that there's room to tighten it up. Like it would lose me a little in the middle of just the lengths of each individual game clip. I think could be tightened. Like I saw enough to know what I needed. I think we could have moved on. And I was a little disappointed at the end, the inhale, exhale, and then switching to a completely different graphical style for the title card. I wanted like dash hail to come in that same screen.
Yeah, we had great consistency. Until that point. I totally agree with that. Also, did we find out who Dash Hale was versus Matt? Because Matt was the lead character. So maybe it's just like one of those things where Dash Hale is supposed to be kind of mysterious, but it is a tough title name for me because it doesn't really tell me much.
I think it's like they're just using his last name Hale and they're telling him to dash to run the whole way through. That's what I'm getting from it.
Yeah, Matt Hale. Yeah, and Dash Hale. That could be definitely it. Yeah,
like Dash Hale Dash. You know.
Then maybe put instead of saying say hello to Matt Hale at the beginning. That would
because even looking at the Steam page, it doesn't clear it up. It does do inhale, save the world, exhale, repeat. So I wonder if that's the pun they're going for. The inhale, exhale, dash hale. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. But that certainly to me could be cleaned up a little bit in terms of what you're meaning there. I guess if you're trying to be cryptic on purpose, that's okay. But it doesn't need to be that way, and that would click us in that much more, right? Because again, I don't think Dash Hale necessarily hits for me in terms of a title that immediately draws me.
It's a weird title. I agree. I like it. Mm-hmm. I don't know what else you would do though. Like as far as if you're just like it's super fast inhale exhale type situation.
Dash Hale could be, you could say Dash Hale and then maybe have a subtitle describing the game itself. I've seen that a lot of times. If you feel like you're Dash. If you feel like the name of your game isn't necessarily going to inspire much looking into, you have to you may need to add a subtitle that really like using brevity sums up your game, or describes it in a way that immediately clicks people in a different way. There are examples of this. I'm blanking on them right now, but Steam has tons of them. You can literally go to the top sellers and probably find something that's like the game name dash an explanation of what this game is, a colony simulator, things like that. Like it'll be in the title itself, and so that's something that you can do if you feel like it would help. If you have a title that's like, I like this title, but it's not necessarily the most descriptive to the or evocative to the potential consumer.
And since it isn't his name, if the pun is the inhale exhale, it should be one word. I don't think that would work very nicely, but it looks like a name right now. And it is not his name. So
okay.
Yeah, so I think of Dash Hale as when I first saw that, I was like, first and last name was my first initial impression of it, and so that's not correct. And so, take that for what it's worth, I guess, if you're the developer, and decide if you need to act on it or not. So,
final thing for us to close out with is we had our. Well, I don't know what to exactly. He does like a million different things, but we had somebody who actually did a trailer for someone, and I got to voice it. And you guys can critique it and tell me how terrible I am at everything. So I posted the link there. It's Waiting for the Raven, and it is the second trailer. And we can get to that in a second. Any final thoughts on this one, other than I would just say rename Matt Dash and call it a day.
That's certainly one
like
thing, and then
the least difficult answer.
Yep.
And then I agree with Tiny Disaster that I think we all agreed on this, is that we're missing that ending needs to be a little more consistent with the style that you brought in originally.
Yeah, the whole thing, he's this purple guy running, and then boom, there's this orange color, and he's like a
different font, different color scheme.
Yeah.
And I mean, it wasn't purple the whole time. It did transition when the gameplay started, right? It showed you different things and such. But the purple was so thematic at the beginning; it almost feels.
And
like
even like the purple matched the game's color scheme, whereas the fiery orange at the end did not.
Yeah. It was too stark of a difference. I agree with that. Okay, so let's watch this Waiting for the Raven trailer, but only focus on Bumpy and make him feel bad.
I don't exist. I'm not real.
It's the first trailer, right?
Second trailer.
Second trailer. Okay.
Oh, it's playing. Hold on. Gotta stop. At least I think it is. Hold on. Stay. I hate trying to get the Steam thing to not autoplay and lose me. All right. You guys ready?
Yep.
In 3, 2.
You have been chosen to restore power to our crumbling order. To achieve this goal, you will need to learn about the city and its citizens. Build a monopoly to fund your operations, including black market vendors, taverns, and brothels. Research new tactics and espionage to assist in achieving your goal. Decipher messages to discover hidden secrets of the past. Make the city of Glasden ours. Use bribery, forge documents, brute force, and if all else fails, assassinate those who stand in your way. I will send instructions soon. Wait for the Raven.
Ta-da! Muscle Bird.
I really
That's cool.
see. I remember this one when you showed me a while back, and first of all, really well done. What After Effects or modulation did you use to get the?
I didn't. That was all Damien did that.
So that was echoey that he added in
Yeah.
for you, I think, is the main thing. But you just changing up your voice and making it a little bit more of that.
I think he did
villain.
a little echo, and I think he might have slowed it down slightly because it sounded a little bit more resonant than what I normally sound like, or even.
It's cool to hear it, right? Because when you first hear it, you're like, "That's not Bumpy" right away, and it takes you a second to kind of hear your voice and recognize that that's you and such. Because I think your natural voice is a nice natural narration voice anyway. So, but they obviously wanted something with a little bit more of a sinister twist, and I thought this reminds me of so many of the early games I worked on where it's like, we have a laundry list of things that you can do in this game. Can you somehow translate this into, like a 60-second trailer? And it works. You actually just get away with it, I feel like. As I'm about to fade out with like how many things you're mentioning, you're like, or assassinate. You're like, okay, we're back. Like I feel, not assassinate, but like, brute force, like, that part. It's like there's all these different things you can do, but if none of those like semi, seedy things work, try murder. You know what I mean? Like it brings you back in. If I was hitting like maybe the 13th or 14th thing and going, oh, you're maybe losing me a little bit, that I thought that clicked it back in really nicely. And then I looked down and we had 10 seconds left in the trailer, and you said, wait for the Raven, and it was like that the way the title hits is really good too, because I'm like, oh man, the way he says that, I wish that was the title. It is the title. So it's just like, or more or less, right? Like, waiting for the Raven. More or less, that's exactly what you say at the end, which I think clicks it back in. And for a game like this, that Raven approaching at the end is a really nice touch, like with your narration, because the game itself is not a lot of that. It's a lot more of like simulation, focusing on your troops and such. But it doesn't take away like showing that at the end or anything like that, because that's part of the story and
maybe even the opening shot of like the
cinematic, right? Yeah, the cinematic stuff that they might put in and such. So
a shout out again to Damien. Like I guess he wrote the script. Maybe they wrote the script, but I think he wrote the script and he threw all the audio together, cleaned it up however he needed to, and came up with all the imagery and everything. So
So surprise, this is actually like a great example of like what Indie Brothers can do as a complete like team. We actually have someone who did the voice acting for this. We had someone who did all the editing for it, and some of the After Effects as well. Possibly the trailer creation. If Damien didn't do the trailer creation, we have worked on trailers before I know I've seen him have to create the trailer before. I know I have, and Josh has before as well. So if it's something that you're looking at these trailers and going, I wish I could get somewhere in that ballpark, and you just don't feel like you can do it on your own, we're certainly open to working together on that kind of thing. And I feel like Waiting for the Raven is a great example that we have the tools to do so.
That's why I wanted to throw it in there. It wasn't about me. I know I'm not the most vain person in the world. I'll work on that, I promise. But
when I say we have the tools to do so, Bumpy's not a tool, but we're cool.
I am a tool. No, it's fine. No, it's just that we do actually have the ability to, come up with a trailer, given the right maybe direction, or we could even, give you feedback on the direction, maybe help you in that regard, because it is something that we've done before, and came out pretty good. So
definitely, it's something you should be very proud of. Like, I mean, as like you said, as your like right now your entry into the video game, I guess, voice acting space, like it's a nice first entry, and I think I hope many more to come, my man.
Yep, and like I said, it's one of those things. I looked into it years ago now. God, I'm so old. Sometimes it feels like it's been a few years, but I looked into it, and I learned early on that voice acting is more than just having a decent voice and being able to control it or whatever, because the acting part exists, and that wasn't something that I really kind of locked down in my mind. So I got into a project where, God, people were just like phenomenal, just like so good, and I'm like, oh boy, this isn't gonna be good for me. So I kind of backed out of that one because
So you felt
I was
probably
not.
the imposter syndrome
It
hit, but
wasn't even the
like,
imposter syndrome. It was I, I felt like my contribution would have brought the whole thing down, because while I may have had the passion, the desire, and what to do it, um, it was going to be a lot more work to get me to the level that the other folks were at, and it's. I mean, I would have loved that, but I don't feel like it was up to the director per se to
yeah,
really go that route and teach me all that I needed to do. So
yeah. When I was a stage actor and film actor, and thought, oh yeah, I can just make that transition. I found out that that's like a completely different craft as well. You have to work on it, and you have to work on like the specifics of that like voice acting craft to become like a better voice. Well, I mean, that's my experience and my perspective. Of course, some people like the voice of Archer and all that. They're just walk in and they have that natural, perfect voice and stuff. And it's just actually Bumpy here. It's why I'm a little jealous of you in that regard and such, is because, like you said, the foundation is there, but you still have to add on some of that extra stuff that you would add, that not extra, but the acting elements and things of that sort. But just to have a voice that a lot of people want to hear to start with is a good thing, and probably why you have thousands of subscribers on your YouTube channel and such.
Blame Splooch. It's always him doing weird voices, and then me mimicking his weird voices, and then it's just kind of, I don't know, it spiraled. So it's all his fault.
Splooch is Bumpy's dad, Papa Splooch, we call him around these parts. So, yep, and yeah, I hope you both are doing well. And yeah, the trailer looks great. We're at our time right now. We did it, y'all, and can't wait to do this again. This was a really good exercise, I think, similar to the Steam Store page feedback rounds that we did, and so hopefully we can have this in the mix every couple of months or so, something that we can continue to do and have folks submit trailers to. I believe that's what Tiny Disaster has in mind. She can chime in at this point, but yeah, well, what's on the schedule next for us, and where are we going from here?
Next week we wrap for the year. Next week is our just kind of end of year wrap up discussion. We'll kind of go through things the Indie Brothers have done, what's happening in gaming, looking forward to 2022. Who knows? It'll just be a more casual chat where we get into everything.
So we'll actually talk for 5 minutes, and then we'll do this like really cheesy clip show of our like episodes for the rest of the time, and so we can just, is that how we're gonna go? No, Bumpy. Okay, maybe not. Okay, but like I feel like that would be the generic Christmas way to go out, or the holiday way to go out. But I totally think we have. This is going to be interesting to talk about this year, what's happened this year, and what we've dealt with in 2021. Not the first year of the pandemic or anything like that. So it's an interesting year to talk about.
35 years long, right?
I've doubled in age since this year started. That's right.
Slightly shorter than last year, but still about 35 years.
And then some of the titles that came out during this year, some of the trends that we saw, some of the things that have popped up, fallen down. We could talk about a lot of different things. So we'll have to see when we get our notes together, what we're going to be talking about. But it'll be interesting for sure, and it's going to be more of a sort of all over the place versus some of the more focused stuff we talked about, because there's just so much to talk about that's happened this last year.
Let me see. It's saying we have quintuple G. Yeah, I think is that the 5? Yeah, quintuple G. That's saying that's how I sound in his mind all the time. Very, very devious and sneaky. Missy said, I wouldn't recognize your voice at all. It sounds good. Do it for more trailers. Thank you. This was sorry. There's a bunch to read here. That's why I'm not going to try to dwell on anything. This was a fun one. Another part of the job that looks so much fun to maybe do on a weekly basis. It's already more than a year we've had the pandemic. I still think it's March 2020.
Yeah,
that's fair. It's fair.
Time may have frozen since that point.
I'm still processing March 2020.
Right.
Everything else has moved on.
Right, for sure. And Quintuple G, thanks for checking in today. And yeah, Bumpy does sound like sort of that
What do you mean?
pour poison in your ear kind of guy. You know what I mean? Like behind your back,
I
just
have a
like
special
yes.
drink for you.
Your
It's fine. All right.
concoctions.
All right, folks, that's it. We are done. We are out of time, and we will wrap up the year next week, and then we're off. Is it till like January 8th, was it? Something like that.
5th, I believe, is the Wednesday of
Something like that.
yeah, because 3rd's a Monday. So it'll be January 5th when we're back after next week. We'll have our wrap up next week. And then we have, I think, we don't have anything official yet, but we do have some things in the works, some special things in the work that we would hope coalesce and come together based on who we're working for, what we're looking forward to in 2022. And those are some of our first January shows. So that'll be interesting as well. A lot to get into, and in between a nice holiday break for everybody. So I hope everybody enjoys that as well.
Well, most of you. I don't get to enjoy holiday break.
Except for the person who's going to be streaming during the winter sale the entire time. But
not the entire time.
I'll
have days off.
I have told him make sure that you give yourself days off or use other people in Indie Brothers if you need to. He wants to be the big carry.
So who exactly can I ruin Christmas when I'm kidding?
It is true. It is the kind of thing I told you to do. I was like, you ruined someone else's Christmas, not me. Exactly. I did leave you out to dry there. Well, thanks everybody, and Bumpy, play us out, yeah?
All right, that's it. We'll see you guys next week, and then we'll see you next year after that. So take care. I've been your host, Bumpy McSquigums, joined by Cupogoodness, A Tiny Disaster. We are the Indie Brothers, and we'll see you next time.